I know the age is kind of a thing where a lot of Tranmere fans tend to roll their eyes and go, "Oh Christ, we've gone for another, mid-30s player." But I think the pedigree of him and the efficiency and reliability of him the last few years at Bradford is a positive. We just hope it's not a Tranmere curse kind of thing and he turns into Brad Walker or something like that. But I just think it's one of them signings that we tend to get outdone by another club. So you find out that Tranmere are in for him and then he ends up going to Walsall or something like that. So for me, I'm actually really pleased that we've signed a bit of a midfield general to sort of marshal those two or three young lads that we've managed to get over the line as well. So yeah, a real positive for me.
Yeah, I think, as you say, I echo everything about. I'm now cautious. I mean, he's lasted 52 games a season for the past 3 seasons. That's some real statement of his fitness, and I think it would be very sort of Tranmere if he then gets injured in pre-season. So I'm very cautious of that. But I mean, what a player he is. I mean, captained a side that finished third in League Two last season, got promoted to come to a side that finished 20th. I mean, forget the player, the club's statement to try and bring him in.
Mm-hmm.
That is something to really, stand by. And I think it shows where we are as a club that maybe we didn't expect we could bring in those types of players. I mean, I've not seen a signing with such high pedigree and such well regard for a long time. I think that's probably the biggest profile signing we've had for a long, long time. And I think he's going to improve the team so much. And I think it turns me from thinking, fighting that relegation battle into a mid-table and obviously other improvements and higher up. I think he's that good a quality player that he really can turn a side around.
Yeah.
It's an interesting recruit because obviously he's clearly got a lot of ability and he will demonstrate that on the field, but it's his leadership that I think is most intriguing. And I think that's what's been notable about a lot of the signings Tranmere have made this summer is they're people who you feel will run the dressing room. Now, when Mickey Mellon was in charge in his first spell, he could basically leave the dressing room to run itself because he had Scott Davis, he had Steve McNulty, he had Jay Harris for a period of it, he had Jeff Hughes. There was the quiet leaders like Connor Jennings and Liam Ridehalgh in there. There was Richie Sutton, James Norwood. It was a team that could discipline itself, if you like. If someone stepped out of line, which they did from time to time, then Scott or Macca would step in and they would tell them what they'd done wrong, and they'd be left in no uncertain terms about it. But if you look at the squads of recent years, I think that's been missing, hasn't it? There's been a lot of times where I've looked on that field and thought, who is actually, pulling these players together? And at times it's been Connor Jennings, but he's a quiet leader. As I say, he's someone who leads more by example than by shouting and effing and blinding like maybe a McNulty or a Davis would have done, who, when they walked in the room, had the aura that said, you will follow me. I don't think Tranmere have had that in recent seasons, and it looks to me, Leon, like Andy Crosby has moved to address it.
Yeah, it was interesting sort of from the Peter Clark and Scott Davis, Martin Gallier nights. They both spoke about the current setup at Tranmere. Obviously, I think at the time, possibly the Peter Clark one was post-relegation safety. I can't remember now. But Scott Davis certainly wasn't, and it was around about the Oldham game when we played them, and he obviously talked about the Tranmere of the past, and then when we went up to League One, and it sort of, because you got rid of your Harris, your McNulty's and co, how it really rocked a dressing room and it became quite a toxic place. And obviously last season certainly looked a really toxic environment. And it's quite nice to hear from Crosby, because he already said this. He said, I'm going to bring players in who are going to improve the dressing room as well as obviously the on-pitch. And that does seem to be the case. He's a no-nonsense manager. And I don't think the last individual was no nonsense, and maybe he tried to be. But I just feel like what the type of players we've brought in, it's gonna help us with it. It's even gonna help us with those kind of games where they're very, very tight, they're very League Two, and Tranmere need to edge it, whereas last season it was constantly being edged by the opposition. I just even mean things like playing the referee a little bit. We seemed very weak in that regard, and other teams could kind of walk all over us and do it in that way. And I just hope that the likes of Smith, obviously Smallwood, and even your Leo O'Connors of the world, who were probably in a minority last season, can sort of be a bulk of us. They can be in the majority now and kind of rifle a few of the lads and say, look, you're here. Let's fight for every foul. I don't even mean kind of play the referee, but just make sure that you're not being beaten off the pitch as well as on the pitch.
I think that's it. You've got to be physically smart as well as with the ball, and I think you've got to really go for those duels. I mean, you look at leaders that have left. Tom Davis will be one. Kieran Morris potentially with his experience, and then again Luke Norris with his experience. Norris obviously being injured for the majority of the past 2 seasons. Looking at incomings, you've got, like you say, you've got Nathan Smith, you've got Jason Lowe, you've got Richie Smallwood. I mean, again, that's one more than we had in midfield, and then I'm sure someone attacking will come in with that sort of leadership on the pitch, like you say. Jennings, I mean, Dennis with his experience, Finley if he plays, and if when he's not suspended, and players like Turnbull, O'Connor, McGee. I think it reminds me of, like you say, those sort of Mickey Mellon sides that are potentially more or older, more experienced, and I think fans started to get a little bit tired of that at the time, but I think it's exactly what we need now. And I think any way that you can win games, you've got to do it. And we've tried with those younger players, we've tried with those old Premier League Academy type players. Nothing's quite worked, and I think we're setting up a really good squad with those young additions. I mean, Kenna is one that I'm really excited about, and I think we'll do really well. And even the likes of Solomon. So I think it's got such a good mix of experience, especially, but then also a little bit of youth. And I think it will help with that dressing room.